Hey everybody, I'm Tom Miller, and welcome to our Monday Mentorship. This is session number two. And so I hope you had an amazing weekend. Hope you're having a great Monday. If I haven't shared this before, Monday's my favorite day of the week. You may find that weird, but it is. I love it. New opportunities, new starts, so much to be thankful for and able to achieve during that week. So let's hop right into it. So this lesson is focused on creating stability in uncertain times from chaos to clarity. And so, like when I think about why I decided to do these, sessions, the fourth quarter of a school year is just so fast and so focused on interruption, right? There's so many things happening, depending upon the grade levels that you serve, what that impact might be, right? So if you're high school, then you're working on graduation, but everybody's really thinking towards next year. Well, not everybody. Leaders should be thinking about next year. Most of your teachers or your regular staff are just like sometimes in survival mode. But as a leader, like you've got to be thinking anywhere from 3 to 5 years to 3 to 6 months. Like it's a very large time frame that is on your mind. So what I want to be talking about is how high performing leaders create stability during these uncertain times, right? So, last week we talked about disruption and how leaders need to think like the futurists. And so this week I want to talk about more something every leader should be trying to create right now, or hopefully has right now, and that's stability. And you don't wait for stability, you create it. And so most leaders, they're waiting for things to settle down when they have more time, or they're waiting for the perfect time, waiting for more clarity to come. But leadership doesn't work that way. See, stability is not created by circumstances. It's created by leadership behavior. And so there's this stability gap. And here's what leaders are typically facing now. And I'm just saying this now is in March 30th, 2026, but sometimes this goes all year long. Chaos, pressure, constant change, constant disruption, right? But here's what teams actually need. They need clarity, consistency, and confidence. So there's a big gap between these two, and this gap is where your leadership's either going to be successful or fail, right? And so I'm going to talk about three drivers of stability here. I'm going to kind of like lay this in the foundation of three great thought leaders that I believe everybody should be reading and following. So the first driver is clarity. All right. And with this one, I'm thinking about Brené Brown. Um, because the first responsibility of a leader is clarity. Clarity in where we're going, clarity in where we are, okay? And what Brené Brown shares is clear is kind, and to be unclear is to be unkind, right? And so when leaders avoid clarity, the expectations become inconsistent, accountability breaks down, assumptions are made, frustration builds. So when you're unclear on the forward vision as a leader, your team pays the price. When you're unclear on where we are, just confusion and frustration sets in. Now, I want to make sure that this is really understood here, right? That I really lay the foundation here. So bear with me. It's okay. It's okay to be uncertain, okay? And it's okay to be unsure in the moment. So the last thing I ever want to project on you is that you have to have all the answers all the time. You don't, right? You don't need to know the whole plan. You don't need to know all the steps. You really just need to know the next step, right? That's important here. that step, even when you take it, might take you in the wrong direction. But there's keys here, right? There are keys here. Um, by taking that step, you get feedback. Okay, like, is this the right way? Like, kind of, you've probably all been there. Maybe you've been in a city or a town, or maybe even in the woods on a trail, and you even probably haven't been there before, but you can take a couple of steps and be like, this doesn't seem like the right way. But see, the key is that you moved, and when you move, information comes. All right. And so when we know what our destination is, when we move, we can get a feeling, we can get a sense that we're moving towards the outcome or, ooh, the wrong way. Okay. So because you know what the end result is, you have clarity, you can discern, you can assess whether or not you're moving in the right direction. Okay. So by taking a step, you get feedback. So, being stuck stinks. So don't be stuck. Just move. Do anything. And I'm here to tell you, any plan will work. Any plan will work. Some take longer, right? Some have a lot more misdirection, but every plan's going to work. Like, you'll eventually get there to your destination. Just could be a more roundabout way. And then number two, it's okay to say, I don't know. I'm not sure. Great question. I look forward to finding out the answer, right? Or what are your thoughts? What do you think? Clearly, you've been thinking on this. What do you think? So don't pretend to know it all or to ever have all the answers. If you do, your leadership, it'll be lonely, okay? Because people who people who don't listen, right, will eventually be surrounded by people who don't have anything to say. So it's really important, right? So don't feel like you have to know it all. Don't try to know it all. Your people know when you're faking it. So clarity means what matters most right now, what success looks like, what are we expecting from each other? And confusion creates anxiety, and clarity creates confidence. Now, there's a kind of a side note here. Confusion is also the first step in learning. So if you're confused, ask questions. Super important, right? If you're confused, ask questions. And I always find it best to ask the question of someone who's already been there, right? So if you're stuck with an issue, you're stuck with a challenge, like, this is where mentorship is so important, right? Ask someone where, like, hey, when you experience this, what's something you wish you would have done differently? Or here's where I'm at. Like, what do you see as my next step? Or have you been in this, before? And if you don't have someone you can go to, I mean, books are great. You can talk to the dead all the time. There's some amazing dead masters that you can learn from, right? And living masters. Okay. And so information, right? Information is just part of that next step. And you can gain information from anything. Library cards are free, Google, you can use AI, right? You can get information, but that mentorship, that conversation back and forth is really, really important, really helpful. So, all right. So confusion creates anxiety, clarity creates confidence. Let's look at driver number two, consistency. And with consistency, I can't think of any other leader except John Maxwell. He consistently talks about consistency and how boring his life is because he basically does the same thing over and over. He actually does the same five things every single day, over and over and over again, right? No matter what the day, Christmas, whether he's sick, not sick, working, not working, right? So clarity without consistency creates instability. So Maxwell teaches that leaders see more before others and they show this way before they walk it, right? They're modeling it. They've already lived it maybe in their head. They've already maybe even, practiced it. So this means that you don't just communicate expectations, you model them, you reinforce them. And your team was never going to rise to the level of your expectations. They're always going to rise to what you consistently model and address, right? What you promote, or I'm sorry, what you permit is what you promote. So What are you permitting? What are you promoting? Right? Consistency shows up in follow through, accountability, standards, communication rhythm, professional growth, every aspect of your life that gets you the result you desire needs consistency. Okay. What John says? Motivation will get you going, but consistency will keep you growing. Okay. So inconsistent leadership creates unstable teams, right? They're unsure, they're unclear, they're just kind of doing something to do something, right? Which just creates, frustration. Okay. So far, the two drivers we've talked about are clarity and consistency. Let's look at number three, alignment. And here I want to bring in another one of my favorite thought leaders, Pat Lencioni. Um, his book, The Advantage, is so good when it comes to culture and organizational health. But so most instability is not caused by effort, it's caused by a lack of alignment. Okay, a lack of alignment. So Lencioni, teaches us that leaders are responsible for creating clarity by answering a few fundamental questions, right? And these six questions to clarity are in his book, The Advantage. One is why do we exist? Two, how do we behave? Three, what do we do? Four, how will we succeed? Five, what's most important right now? And six, who must do what? And so when the answers to these six questions aren't clear, teams pull in different direction and priorities compete and people get frustrated. So I'm telling you, these six questions should be anchored in everything that you do in all aspects of your organization. If I were to unpack them like this, why do we exist? That's your mission and your purpose, right? Everybody should understand that in your organization. Why do we exist? Okay. Number two, how do we behave? These are your core values. Your values, right? Your values will drive the behavior. Your behavior drives actions. Your actions get you your results. So everybody's got to understand the core values, the principles of who we are, and which leads into the next question: what do we do? So if you're a school, we teach kids. Maybe you're a college prep school, right? Maybe you're an elementary school, but we teach students, right? Students learn. That's the purpose of school. Number four, how will we succeed? These are the strategies to ensure question number three happens, right? So how will we succeed? Teacher development, proper training, certain programs, certain approaches, ongoing feedback, right? I mean, whatever it is, like what are the strategies that gets us the best results? How will we succeed? Hiring quality adults, constant recruitment, whatever the goal is, it needs a strategy, okay? The goal without a strategy is just a wish. So why do we exist? Mission. How do we behave? Values. What do we do? It's our goals, right? Our what are we trying to achieve here, right? Four, how will we succeed? Those are our strategies. Number five, what's most important right now? These are priorities, all right? So what is your priority in coming to the fourth quarter of the school year? What should your time and attention be focused on, right? Ensuring a strong end of the year. If you're a charter school, right, you're making sure enrollment hits for next year, right? So you're probably focusing on recruitment of adults and students, new board members, getting all of your contracts, a focus for next year, evaluating programs, like all those things, right? Like I'm looking 6 to 18 months ahead all the time, all the time. And who must do what? So everybody needs to understand their role to the goal. Okay. So when these aren't clear, teams pull in different directions, priorities compete, and people get frustrated. So if everything is important, nothing is important, right? So what's most important? Like what should you be spending your time with as the head of the organization? Or maybe you're an assistant principal, or maybe you're a teacher leader, maybe you're a coach. Like what's the most important few things you should be doing every day? Just like John Maxwell, he's got five, his daily five. Every day he reads, every day he writes, every day he asks questions, every day he adds value, right? And every day he learns, right? Or he files, actually, sorry. So he reads, he files, he writes, he asks questions, he adds value every day. Ask him. You say, John, every day, even Christmas, every day, right? So if everything's important, nothing is. So let's tie this back to stability, right? Because that stability comes from clear priorities, clear roles, and clear direction. Priorities, roles, and direction. If I know what my job is, if I know my role to the end result, right, where we're going, and I know every day what's the most important 1 to 3 things I should be doing, my job's pretty easy. My job's pretty easy. The problem is we show up at school and we've got 8 million things going on. We're not always sure what's the most important part of our day. So if you step back and look at it, Brené Brown reminded us that clarity is kind. John Maxwell reminded us that leaders go first. Pat Lencioni reminded us that alignment creates results. So as we bring it all together, when you combine clarity, consistency, and alignment, you get stability. Clarity, consistency, and alignment will create the stability that you need. So where leaders lose stability, well, it's in the 3 Ps: people, programs, and property. So let's look at those. And as we look at them, I want you to think about in the lens of where you are right now, in the lens of where you want to be 6 months to 18 months from now. Okay. So we lose stability when we avoid tough conversations with people, or when we have inconsistent accountability or unclear expectations, right? Most people problems are clarity problems. That's really it, right? So where are you, right? If we were to think about right now, right? Do I have tough conversations every day? Do I find them and root them out? Do I have consistent accountability practices? And accountability is not an evil word. Accountability is just, I can count on you, right? You know what your job is. I can count on you to do it. And I'm not micromanaging you. Okay. I've equipped you, I've empowered you, I've got consistent setup measures, I've got one-on-ones with all my team. Like I know exactly where everybody is. Okay. And unclear expectations. Same thing. If I've got those one-on-one meetings with everybody that I supervise, and I'm meeting them once a week or once or twice a month, and we're sitting down, we're talking through those pieces. Like that's stability, that's clarity. But where are you with your people? Where are you with your people? Remember, most people problems are clarity problems. Number two, let's look at programs. Maybe you got too many initiatives, right? And you're not sure of which ones are actually working. So you're just doing them all. We've got no clear priorities. You just kind of show up and go. Uh, or there's constant shifting, right? Constant shifting of the goal. And I remember I went through this when I was in my transition year, a couple of years ago with the business, and I was running a school at the same time, and I didn't realize this, but I kept moving the goalpost. But it was really because I was so I didn't have a clarity in kind of what I wanted my day to look like, like how I wanted to spend my day. I was just learning so much. It was in such a learning phase, but my team really needed consistency, right? They wanted all the all the boxes checked, and I just wasn't there for them. And it because I wasn't seeing the signs, because I was too busy here with me, I wasn't seeing the frustration, right? So like if you've got constant shifting, like you're making massive ripples probably in your organization, you don't even know. So complexity creates instability. Okay, so keep it simple. Okay. What can we just like, what's the one thing we can address right now? Let's just address that. Okay. So too many initiatives, no clear priorities, constant shifting, like it just creates an issue. All right. And the last piece, property. And these 3 Ps are from Brian Carpenter. If you haven't read his book, Saviorship, it's a really great leadership book for charter school board members and leaders. But I just love the simplicity of these three. And he writes the book from more of a risk management kind of standpoint. But I just love people, programs, and property. So property is reactive decisions, no long-term planning, constant, crisis mode. Like these are the unstable pieces, right? So when you're every day, I would start with the four corners and four walls exercise, right? Walk the four corners of your property, look at it from a guest, perspective. Like, what are the things that, can be fixed immediately versus where do we need to be looking down the road? Do I have somebody on my team who can actually help me think through that, or someone who's in charge of that? If I have like the budget to do that, do I have a facilities manager? Like, have I stayed in touch with like what's the warranty on everything I've bought? What's the lifetime, right, of my Chromebooks, or what's the lifetime of my computers? Do I have a 3 to 5 year, technology plan? Like, when I've got these things in play, like, I'm creating a responsive, stable atmosphere. When I'm just buying to replace, it's complete chaos, complete chaos. So what you fail to plan for becomes your next disruption. Okay. So everything should be planned ahead. You should be constantly planning ahead. And as I said, depending upon your role, you're either looking anywhere from 3 to 6 months ahead to 3 to 5 years ahead, right? Someone in your organization needs to be looking 3 to 5 years ahead all the time, all the time. So, so there's a couple of kind of cases here, case studies we can kind of walk through. The first one was, many of you know, I spent 3 years being the executive director of 9 different schools, like an interim executive director of 9 schools over 3 years, mostly in North Carolina, one in Florida. But one particular school went on strike my first day. They had a walkout, an employee walkout. Now, not everybody walked out, but they walked out. And they walked out with kids, right? And I was just there, and I didn't know anybody in the organization. The board chair met me, and we were just kind of standing out front. I was watching all this kind of hoopla go on. The news shows up, and people were like, "Aren't you going to do something?" I was like, everybody seems safe. It's fine, right? So we let them do what they got to do, and they had it. Then they came back in, and we had school, but over the next 45 days, about 40% of the staff left. This is early in the school year. This is, probably September to October. And so, like, I remember the board chair kind of saying to me, he's like, you're like a kamikaze pilot. Like, he's like, you're so calm around this. I said, look, um, I'm going to control what I can control. I can't control the emotions of all these people. I can't control what happened in the past, but I know I have systems and frameworks that'll create success and consistency across this school. And so that's what we did, right? We used our 10 indicators of high performing assessment, got an idea of kind of where the school needed help. Obviously, one would be hiring. We put our hiring plan in place. And I'm telling you, by the end of the year, we were actually more staffed than we were when all the chaos started. And we had, better qualified employees in most of the roles. And we actually finished the year at a better spot academically, financially than the school had in its, previous years. Now, that's not necessarily, because of me. It was because of the systems created calmness across the school. So no matter how many people called out or they weren't there or whatever was going on, we had a system in play to just solve that problem. Right now, I'll be very honest. Some days we were like 15 minutes at a time, like me and the front office person, and she was great. And we're like, hey, let's just check in every 15 minutes. Like, how are we doing? Do we have the classes covered? Like, I was doing constant walkthroughs. I was checking on everything, right? You're leading by walking around. But you create, right? And you get what you fight for, right? I was fighting for a stable atmosphere where kids can learn, where the adult emotions and behaviors were not going to impact the kid's success. And that's what we did. Compared to another, situation, um, uh, earlier in my career, um, I was also the interim executive director, and we had gone through, this whole kind of, process of who we think that the board should approve and, recommend for, renewal. And the board chair, like, there was an issue between them and like an employee, prior to me. And I had fought for this employee, and the board chair said something like, they're not going to stay. I'm telling you, everybody, I got up And I just showed my tail and I walked out. And I think she said like, oh, really, really, mature, something to that effect. But I avoided the hard conversation, right? I was inconsistent with my communication, to them. I didn't spend the time to kind of like really understand, the why. I was reactive and protective, right? Rather than open and, curious. And a significant difference, right? In my growth. There's probably 9 or 10 years in between those two, situations. But the result was chaos and it was loss of credibility. And the teacher ended up not even staying anyway, right? After all that, kind of fighting and, fussing over it, they didn't even stay. So, your team is not reacting to the situation. They're always going to be reacting to your leadership. And it's important that you understand how to calm yourself down, how to create that slowing down impact where you're just seeing it all. And you'll hear lots of athletes talk about that, right? When they're in like those high level moments, like they're not stressed out. Like Derek Jeter's one of my favorite baseball players ever. And he tells this story all the time. Like he would treat the fifth inning of a spring training game down in Florida at the same intensity that he would game seven of the World Series. He said, because like you can't like rise to the moment if you haven't put yourself in a moment 100 times or 1,000 times. And that's such an important piece with leadership too, right? Where you taking the time to step back and really see the perspective and hear the perspective of everybody. Because when you can hear the perspective and see it from all different angles, it's so much easier to create that, stable environment that your team and your organization needs. So this week's reset, right? Where do I need to create, clarity now? Okay. Like, where is it unclear in my organization? And if you don't know, ask your team. Hey, do you understand our mission, right? Do you know our core values? Do you know like why we're doing XYZ? Do you know the strategy of XYZ, right? If they don't know, then that's a problem. Okay. So maybe use those 6 questions to clarity. And if you want to email me at tom@lbleaders.com, I'll send you like a template of it. So where do I need to create clarity? Where am I being inconsistent? What conversations am I avoiding? Okay, those are the three. I want you to write them down. I want you to journal on those this week. Where do I need to create clarity immediately? Where am I being inconsistent? And it could be like getting in the classrooms, having conversation with teachers, seeing if students are learning. Maybe it's talking to the members of your board and building rapport. I mean, there's so many areas that you need to do as a leader of a charter school. What conversations am I avoiding? This one should be easy. There's probably 2 or 3. And if you've been through our VO or, dealing with difficult people, training, it should be easy for you. You've got a framework. If you haven't been through it and you're interested, let me know. Just reach out, message me. What's your 30-day move, right? So over the next 30 days, what are your top 3 priorities? Okay. Know them and communicate them like every day. This is what we're working on, right? It's safety, it's student mastery, it's right mission forward, like whatever. Communicate clearly, like every day. Okay, making sure you're cascading communication, and you can never over communicate. So don't think you're over communicating. And the key to know is if you're communicating and you're walking around and you're seeing what you communicated, one, make sure you thank the person for doing what you said. And two, really know that you're doing it well. If you're not seeing it, then your communication isn't going through, and that's where you got to get curious, right? Hey, here's what I shared out, but here's what I see you doing. Help me understand, okay? And reinforce it weekly, okay? Make sure your team knows what you're focusing on each week, because stability is going to be built through reputation, not just intention, okay? Big difference between good intentions and intentional action. I want you to take intentional action. So anytime you've got a question or you've like, feeling something, I encourage you to email me or message me. Would love to help you walk through it, or maybe it'll be a topic on one of our mentorship Mondays, right? So whether it's hiring, discipline, team conflict, strategic planning, parent pressure, raising money, whatever it may be, we can help you build the leadership systems to put those in play. So just to close here, stability is not something you wait for. It's something you create. Okay. And it's not done by controlling circumstances, but by how you think, communicate, and lead every single day. If this added value to you, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get the next one. Like and share. All right. My son will be very, very happy if you do that because then it makes his dad look like he's got lots of followers. But only do that if it added value. Thanks, everybody. Have a blessed day.